Hi, my name's Cody, and welcome to Establishing Ethos, presented by the California State University Fullerton Writing Center. So today I'm going to talk about how to establish your ethos. I'm going to go over in academic writing, speeches. I'm going to cover what ethos is, how to use it, how not to use it, and all of those different aspects. So let's get into it. So, what is ethos exactly? Ethos, or the ethical appeal, means to convince an audience of the author's credibility or character. On the right-hand side, I have a picture of Aristotle with some advertisements behind him. He's the man who came up with the ideas of ethos, pathos, and logos. We're going to focus on ethos today. Ethos is essentially your credibility. It can be the most powerful of the modes of persuasion because it's one of the ones that we most rely on without really thinking about it. So just, think about the way advertisers use ethos to get us to purchase products. Taylor Swift and LeBron James can be selling anything, right? It isn't what they are selling, but it's just they themselves that is being sold, right? They're using their personality to sell an item, and that's ethos, right? We believe in their character and their credibility. Now we're on to ethos in academic writing. So in academic writing, ethos is conveyed first and foremost through appropriate use of style and grammar. Basically, sentence structure, periods, commas, all of that. All types of writing have specific structures of formatting they must follow, such as, paper citations, structure, think MLA, APA, and Chicago. In academic writing, it's definitely like structure, like your thesis, right? Your thesis lays out a structure for your paper. And if your paper isn't following that format, how it's laid out in your thesis, you're going to lose ethos because people have seen that a logical structure is being laid out before them. And when it doesn't follow that logical structure, you lose credibility as a writer or, someone who's giving a speech. So definitely proofread your argument and for grammar. Now let's talk about establishing your ethos. First thing you should do is, ask yourself a couple questions about your believability. Will your audience find you believable? And what can you do to ensure that they do? You can establish your ethos and credibility through two basic ways. Build your own credibility on a topic, by yourself, or use sources, and your sources will help build that credibility. Ethos can also be granted by expertise, right? So, how long have you been in the field? How educated are you in that field? How long have you worked in that field with experience? How old you are? Your relationship to the audience? Are you like a person who would connect with the audience or not? The context, what context is this argument taking place in? What type of clothing, let's say you're giving a presentation to people before you when you're wearing t-shirt and shorts instead of a suit, that could affect your ethos. And that credibility is extremely important to building your argument. If you lack credibility in your argument, then people won't listen to your argument, and that makes it a weaker argument. Now we're going to start to talk about how to use your ethos, right? So go over again, ethos is the very character of the writer or speaker and is the basis for agreeing or disagreeing with what they are arguing. And we can establish our ethos through a few steps. One step is for you to show you have a wide range of knowledge on the topic. You can impress upon the reader, oh wow, this guy knows a lot. He seems like a credible source of information since he knows so much about this topic. Ethos may also be shown by telling the readers that the writer is an authority on the topic. You could be saying oh, hey, this guy has written about this several times before. He definitely is an authority on this, and therefore he has ethos, he has credibility. But one of the most important things to remember is that this approach focuses more on the character of the writer or speaker rather than the actual content of your paper. Kind of think about it like this picture right here. We have Michael Jordan saying hey, Ravac, this is a great battery. Michael Jordan is a basketball player, right? So we're looking more for this battery. We know he's not an expert on it, but we know Michael Jordan is, a credible person. So that's why that's why he gains ethos from us and we accept what he is saying. So some strategies for building ethos, right? If you don't have experience or education, what you're mostly going to be doing is relying on your sources, right? So make it known that your sources are credible. Part of having your ethos is having credible sources. You can introduce your sources with signal phrases that highlight their authority. I have a couple examples here. according to the study by the Center for Disease Control. We know the Center for Disease Control is someone who has expertise in diseases, right? So we would listen to what they say. They have that ethos, that credibility. You want to highlight some factors about a source that might accentuate that credibility. It might make it stand out. Establish some common ground with your audience. Acknowledge different values and beliefs from both sides of the arguments. Don't discount anyone's opinion. What you're trying to do is just show objectively why you think what you think, and don't try to minimize anyone else. And then we've talked about this a little bit, but organize your argument into a logical and easy to follow manner. You can do this with your thesis, right? And lay everything out and try to stick to that layout. Since one of the most important things at establishing your ethos is having good sources, we need to vet those sources. So how do we evaluate sources? We can do that by checking a few things. The first one is current. Is this information up to date? Has this information been updated? You really want sources that are as current as possible. Relevance, does this information pertain to your topic? You don't want, sources that are talking about something else while you're talking about, like, let's say, you find a source that's talking about like Lamborghinis, but you're writing on Ferraris, right? You don't want that. Authority. Who is the source of the information? Is the author qualified to write on this topic? Yeah, just look at who's writing it, right? Are they someone who should be writing on it, or is it just a random person who's, kind of going out of their field? Accuracy. Is this information truthful and reliable? Where is it coming from? Just look at like the journal or what website, right, that it's coming from. Does it have a lot of grammatical errors? It could be like a blog post, instead of an actual article. And then purpose. Why does this information exist? Is this an opinion piece? Is it propaganda? So yeah, definitely look at that. Is there bias in this article? Is it being written to try to force an opinion? Is it being written to try to convince people of something? Or is it being written to state facts in the world? And those are like things to think about when choosing a source. Some more strategies to think about, while building your ethos. Tone's a really big one. It'll make you sound credible as a writer. We sometimes write about controversial issues and need to remain as objective as possible. If you try to get into emotion or start, disparaging other people, you'll lose credibility. No one wants to listen to someone who's constantly talking down other people, right? You may not convince everyone to agree with you, but, just try to make sure that your audience will at least listen to your side. And then another big one, avoid logical fallacies, right? I'm going to go over all of these logical fallacies, but like slippery slope, hasty generalization, red herrings, ad hominem. We're going to discuss all of those, but you really want to try to avoid all of these because they're all going to ruin your credibility. So these are some of the logical fallacies that I was talking about on the previous page. I'm going to go through some of them, but definitely like take your time, like pause this video and like write some of these down because these are really important and you really don't want these in your persuasive and argumentative essays. The first one is slippery slope. This is a conclusion based on the premise that if A happens, then eventually through a series of small steps through B, C, and blank, and so on will happen too. Basically equating A to Z. So if we don't want Z to occur, A must not be allowed to occur either, which doesn't make sense, right? Like anything could happen anyways. It's just, you can't connect things to other things like that. Hasty generalization. This is a conclusion based on insufficient or biased evidence. In other words, you are rushing to a conclusion before you have all the relevant facts. You don't want to do that because this, if you want people to listen to your argument, you want it to have facts, right? Another big one is ad hominem. We talked about this one a little bit. This is an attack on the character of a person rather than their opinions or arguments. Yeah, again, you're going to lose credibility if you're just attacking the other side and you're not disproving the other side, right? Red herring, this is another pretty common one. This is a divisionary tactic that avoids the key issues, often by avoiding opposing arguments rather than addressing them. So you're just kind of sidestepping the argument. And if you don't focus on those key issues, your argument's going to be lacking. So definitely take some time to look at all of these because they're all really important, and you don't want to be using any of these logical fallacies in your argumentative or your persuasive essays. Thank you so much for watching this video about establishing ethos. My name's Cody again. Here is my bibliography. I used Purdue OWL for a lot of this information and also some of my own experience as a writer. But come and visit us here at the California State University Fullerton Writing Center, and you guys have a great day.